In this video, we're going to look at some simple expansions done by Wolfram. I'm going to work with Wolfram Cloud. You can also do this with Wolfram Alpha, at least most of it, and also Mathematica if you happen to have that sort of desktop version installed on your computer. Okay. So, and Alpha is sort of more open and generic, so that you don't have to be as precise in your language. The Wolfram and Mathematica, the Wolfram Cloud and Mathematica require you to use sort of a little bit more explicit, correct language, but then you can sort of do a bit more with that. Okay. So I'm just going to, as an introduction, sort of use a simple expand method. So, and I've sort of typed some things out so you don't have to watch me type. And the one thing about like Wolfram Mathematica as compared to a lot of other things, say Excel or R or what have you, is that it can work symbolically. So I can work with variable names. So I can have in my first example H and T sort of corresponding to heads and tails. And so then I've asked Wolfram to expand for me the quantity H plus T raised to the fifth. And then to do that, if I were typing for the very first time, you wouldn't see this grayed out part. You would just like down here, you would sort of make up space and start typing. But I have previously sort of typed this and entered it, and now it's sort of forgotten, but it was once a thing, so that's why this sort of gray is there. But I didn't type that, I typed only the expand. And this is going to change when I enter it, and I enter it by holding down the shift. If I just hit enter, it's just going to give me, that's what I'm going to do right now, just gives me this, another line. But if I do a shift enter, then it is going to enter it into Mathematica, into Wolfram, and sort of perform the function I've asked it to. So now I'm holding down shift and hitting enter, and it performs this expansion. H plus T raised to the fifth, it expands it out. So it's sort of like a FOIL on steroids. So a FOIL is first, outside, inside, last. That's for when you're doing 2, but now I'm doing 5. And this can be interpreted sort of combinatorially as I'm flipping a coin 5 times, and those coefficients in front can tell you sort of in how many ways can I do it. So in how many ways are there to get 5 heads, all heads? Well, there's one way, everything has to be a head. How many ways are there to get 4 heads and 1 tail? Well, there are 5 ways. One of the 5 could be the tails and the rest heads, but it could be the first one was the tail, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. So that's 5 ways. And so on down the line. So the way to get 3 heads and 2 tails, there are 10 ways to do that. And the other thing nice about Wolfram Mathematica is that it will do not just symbolically, but it will do a lot symbolically. So I can raise it not just to the 5th, but to the 20th. I could go much higher, but this is good enough for me. So this is shift enter, and I'm getting, what if I flipped a coin 20 times? So then we see here, let's say, and how many ways could I get 15 heads and 5 tails? Well, it's 15,504. So, and then down here, it's offering other things that it might do for you. Take derivatives, factor, plots. I'm not going to do any of those things. I'm just keeping it simple and expanding. but it's got a lot on offer. Now I'm moving from sort of a head-tailed idea to a dice idea. And so I'm taking x plus x squared plus x cubed plus x to the fourth plus x to the fifth plus x to the sixth. And I'm just focusing sort of on the power. I could have called this x raised to the 1. It's the same as x. And so I can think of like this, the number on the side of a die as this power of x. And then I can take that quantity, that expression, and raise it to the third and expand it. And I get this, and that has interpretations of sort of in how many ways. So I roll 3 dice. It was raised, that quantity was raised to the third. So this is like rolling 3 dice. And then that power is the sum of the dice. So in how many ways can I roll a 3? Well, there's just one way. They all have to be ones. And how many ways can I roll a 4? Well, there were 3 ways. I'm going to roll 2 1s and a 2. That will get me, that's the only way I can get 4, but any of the 3 dice could have been the 2. And so that's where the 3 comes from. And again, it just expands away for you. So I could do, a 12-sided die or whatever. I forget which numbers of die sort of actually exist, but I could do 4-sided die or 6-sided die or higher, and I could do 3 die or 5 die or what have you and play this game. So just some of the abilities of Mathematica, that it's symbolic. Another nice thing, at least at this level, it has a nice separation of that its functions, its methods, the things it does go with square brackets, and it reserves parentheses just for the grouping purpose. So in some other computer languages and such, you'll see parentheses sort of playing double duty. There'll be a functional aspect of the parentheses and a grouping aspect of the parentheses, but Mathematica really sort of separates them. Square brackets for function method type things, and parentheses just for grouping. When you get to more sophisticated programming ideas, it becomes a problem for Mathematica, because then when people start introducing in other languages the square brackets, Mathematica's used them for this purpose and then has to come up with other notations, which are sometimes at least different than what the rest of what other things are doing. Anyway, okay, so here is another little function we can, little expression that we can expand. And this is a kind of thing that comes up if you're compounding interest. So this expression, if x were my sort of interest rate, 0.06 for 6% or something, and I'm just going to compound it monthly, then I take my 0.06, I divide it by 12, but then I compound that interest 12 times. That's the raised to the 12. So these numbers, at least if you're doing like a full year, are the same. And again, this gets, to write this all out with this 12 in the denominator and this taking it to the 12th power can get cumbersome, especially if you're doing it symbolically. But as opposed to numerically, it's not too bad if you have a specific x. But symbolically, it's tedious. But Mathematica Wolfram will do it for you. So there are all these crazy terms. And then, and I called it monthly. So up here, I didn't give these things names, so they became out 1 and out 2. So if I wanted to do any further work with this, I would refer to it as out 1. But But down here, I've this monthly one, I gave the name monthly. So if I want to do any further work, I can work with its name in so I don't have to say out for, which may be sort of an accident of how long I had, Wolfram or Mathematica open and how many things I was doing. I can instead give it a specific name that I'm controlling. So that has some conveniences sometimes. And the N here is going to say numerical. So instead of these 11/24ths and 55 430 seconds, it's going to sort of give me a decimal approximation to those, especially if you have very long expansions. You might, that's the nice thing about Mathematica is it does these very exact things for you, but sometimes you don't need to be quite as exact. And so you might want it to force it into a more numerical thing. It's not completely numerical because I'm not telling it a specific X. But here are those numbers sort of approximately as decimals, but the X's are still powers. And that's sort of intermediate sort of quasi-numerical, but not fully numerical. So it can be in this in between. It's not fully symbolic. You can get an in between where it's symbolic in terms of the X, but the numbers were sort of approximated as decimals. And then I just do a similar idea. Now, if you take this 12, if you made it 365, as I say, this had something to do with compounding interest monthly. If you did 365, and these where the two 12s are made of 365s, that would be daily. And then if you take that number to infinity, you get the exponential function. Now, the exponential function sort of doesn't stop. These expansions are sort of finite. They end. And I just wanted to show you, although it's advanced topic here and I'm not really going to do anything with it, but that there is this idea in Mathematica of a series. And so I have this exponential function, which would go on and on and on. I'm going to expand it around x of 0 and get sort of 12 terms. And I'm going to get a series this time, just to show it does related things. Now it's saying there's more. So this last term over here is saying, and more, there's more. But this is just giving you, it's an idea that's like expand, but expand, usually the thing is finite, and so it can get all of the terms. Whereas this idea of series is it would go on, and you tell it to stop. All right, that's just some of what I wanted to show you, some of the capabilities, simple capabilities of Mathematica. Expand is a pretty easy thing. Of the things Mathematica does, expand is pretty easy, but it does a lot of tedious work for you, so it's very useful. It can have some combinatorial interpretations. How many ways are there to get 2 tails and 18 heads if I roll the dice 20 times? Well, 190, I can see that. Or dice, or playing with interest, and so on. Just some things it does for you. And also showed you this idea of the separation of the square bracket for function and method kind of things versus the parentheses for the grouping purpose. All right, that's what I want to show you in this one. Thanks for your attention.